Now, the assessment process in the realm of getting shredded, of someone who is like, hey, I am wanting to take myself to a place that I've never been before. Execution is going to be paramount. But how do you gauge if it's working? How do you differentiate between going flat and not having a high degree of glycogen in your muscles, losing some water retention from drops in carbs, drops in sodium? And I think it's important to understand this even if you do have a coach. I would really consider like what dictates a good check-in. So I think for me, what defines a good check-in is being relatively close to the rate of loss that I was aiming for. So for me, yeah, like I might say like right now, I want to see a 1% rate of loss. But if I'm at 0.8 or 0.9% for the week, and I know that multiple weigh-ins were done a little bit earlier, or I didn't really use the bathroom, or there were just days I didn't sleep as well, so I know those high weigh-ins are skewing that weekly average, and if they were a little more accurate, it would be closer to that 1% rate of loss per week. Well, then I feel good about it. And largely that's been how this like fat loss phase, the current one I'm in, has gone. Is there's been weeks where I'm like, yeah, like I am PMSing and I know that I'm creating a big enough deficit through diet and cardio, but I know on the scale I'm just a little bit short of that 1% rate of loss per week, which realistically at 150 pounds or 145 pounds, it's like that is a pretty significant deficit. So some kind of allowance early on I think is completely fine in those kind of circumstances, or at least that's what I deem to be acceptable. I also define success though as like how honest am I being with myself about how I'm feeling? How solution oriented am I being? Am I reporting thoughts that are a little negative that I need to pay closer attention to, or that I have the opportunity to correct? Really, if it was a rough week, I think just simply like logging that and being very honest that like this week was tough. I think that's important. It breaks my heart when I hear clients, they're like, yeah, like I didn't want to share with you like what I was going through because I didn't want it to affect what we're doing, or didn't want you to think less than me or think that I'm weak. And I'm like, no, like these are very real things, and your ability to communicate these stressors that might not be tied to the program that we're on is super helpful. And it does give me the ability to make concessions, or even like understand that like this next week, even though initially maybe I would have dropped food, it might not be what's best for you. Now, when we talk about a good check-in, like for me, for clients, a good check-in is them submitting training videos. So even though I'm self-coached, I'm still like, yeah, like I need to take some kind of video footage every week to make sure that like I'm keeping an eye on how I'm moving, paying attention to any discrepancies I have in terms of function or access to different ranges of motion. Now, when it comes to competing, I mean, like I think an aspect to this is also going to be the posing. So something that I've been prioritizing within my check-in process is ensuring that even if I don't record it, I'm still bringing my heels to the gym. I'm still making time to do 5 to 10 minutes of posing. And whether that be focused more on like my walk or holding my poses or just like getting comfortable in the heels, it's still something that like, as I look back on in my check-in, I'm like, this would be a concern if I know that it's a deficit and I know I didn't prioritize it. So there are aspects to assessing a check-in, even like assessing, did you lose the right amount of weight? But then there's also like, what did this week look like, and what areas did you not execute on nearly as well? And that's very much why, like I tell my clients, like if you were trying to get super shredded, if you were trying to really take your body to a new level of conditioning, we need to have this dialed in, and not necessarily so much on the posing unless you're competing, but like we need to have high reporting of measurements, of pictures, of scale weight. So those are kind of like non-negotiables. And when clients ask me like, hey, like what do I need to do to like really take it to the next level? What do I need to do to achieve this goal that's new for me? I'm like, these are the fundamentals. Like you're also going to have to develop mental grit and be able to push through some of, really that I would say like that discomfort that's going to come with getting to new body fats for the first time. But from a reporting standpoint, I need to have the necessary information. And I think it's important if you're self-coaching to be able to audit this and be like, yeah, you know what, this week I didn't show up for myself in these ways, so I'm going to do that differently. And this is exactly why on my check-in form, I have an area that's like, areas for improvement. And I ask clients, I'm like, what did you do okay this week, or what did you not do that well that you want to kind of call yourself out on for this next week, so that we know like it's something you're aware of, and you know that if you were to do it, it would actually result in a better week next week. Now, number 5, knowing when to adjust. Now, there's a point in terms of getting as lean as you need to be to achieve said goal, whether that's weight or a visibility of like a specific metric, like your abs or your glutes. There's a point where you do need to be able to call it and really make that assessment that like, hey, I don't have enough muscle to continue sustaining this. And this is a big question. And plenty of people realize like mid-diet, even if they drop 10 more pounds, that they might just appear smaller, not necessarily as shredded, or even in turn a little more stringy, not as curvy as they desire. And I would say like really in the essence that you were trying to build a fit physique, not just a very stringy and like grainy physique. This is something that I would consider really at that diet break is like, do I like how things have been going? Is the rate of loss acceptable? Do I need to be tighter with execution? Is there anything I'm doing that's making this fat loss phase that much harder? And largely, do I have enough energy in reserve? Do I have enough gas in the tank to get me where I need to be to hit that destination? Now, in the case that you're using your glutes as like, that's your destination, you're trying to have fully visible tie-ins, but you get to that diet break and you're like, hey, like I'm 10 pounds above stage weight. And I know that like, I probably have another 10 pounds of fat, yet my upper body's already shredded, my core's already shredded. You could actually shift at this point to more of a reverse diet or even another build phase. But I think it's important to be able to take that week, in the case of we're talking more of like a longer horizon, take that week and really assess like, will you benefit from continuing to see out this goal? And I think for some people, it's like, yeah, that diet break or that intermediary, that middle point is a really good time to begin to reflect on like what you've done well, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And even in like more of a micro sense, you could do this on a weekly basis within your check-in. And I think it's important if you have a coach to kind of gather their feedback, like what are things that you could be doing better that maybe they're not prompting you with. And I think how I want to close this out is like, getting to low levels of body fat can be very, very uncomfortable. And that's where I would try initially to set yourself up in a way that you can manage fatigue. You can go in with clear expectations and a very clear understanding of what is needed in order for you to get to that destination. But probably the most important thing about all this is having a clear and defined destinations that you are trying to achieve. If you're forcing your body to just continue to do the cardio and do the deficit and restrict food, yes, like that is a component of getting very lean, but there is a point where that's no longer helpful and you'll actually look worse because of it. And looking worse, I mean, like that's like best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you lose muscle. So then like your actual composition shifts in a way to where your body fat is not nearly as lean as you would have had it if you retained that muscle. Now, keeping adherence high, that is so important. And even being able to admit or to discuss with your coach or with, a close, trusted mentor, partner, whatever, whether or not you have all the tools necessary to be adherent. I think that's super important. But you can absolutely reach high levels of conditioning, so very low body fat percentages, even as a female, even as a natural athlete. There are definitely like health impacts to sustaining this. So it's something I would be very intentional of. Remember, shredded is a very ambiguous term. It's a moving target. And once you're there, you might love it, but you also might find that like, hey, it's fucking hard and it's not really sustainable to sit here year round. And that's completely okay. I think it's important to expect for training to go down, fatigue to go up, to sleep to be a little disrupted, for libido to be disrupted, for hunger to go up. And this might be something that you dabble in and you do, and you're like, okay, cool, I was able to do this, but now I want to scale back and find a body fat percentage that is still very fit and still very lean, but not necessarily like peeled, because I need to find that middle ground that is sustainable for me to kind of float in and around.